Everybody, thank you for being with us here today. The topic of this webinar is how to prepare a winning graduate application with Brandeis University. And today I'm joined by Mary Winn, Assistant Director of Admissions at Brandeis University. Thank you so much, Mary, for being with us here today and taking our time. I'm Sharbano. I work as an Education USA advisor here at the Lahore office. I did my Fulbright Master's program from the George Washington University, where I pursued a Master's in International Development Studies, and I specialized in impact evaluation and climate resilience. I will give everybody a brief overview of Education USA so that everybody knows what we do and what our portfolio is. I hope that everybody can see my screen. Okay, great. So Education USA is known as USEFP in Pakistan, which is short for the United States Educational Foundation in Pakistan. And we provide advising all across Pakistan, though we have physical offices in cities like Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. The Fulbright program, of which I am an alumna myself, is the flagship program of the US EFP. So the Fulbright program basically supports Pakistani students who want to pursue a graduate studies in the US. It could be either a master's program or a PhD program. And the Fulbright program is present pretty much all over the world, though the largest number of students are selected from Pakistan each year. So Pakistani students make up a huge chunk of the Fulbright cohort each year. And the Fulbright program not only supports students with their tuition fee or scholarship, but it also provides support with living costs, including accommodation, housing, books, food, transportation, and as well as an airfare return ticket too. So, what is Education USA? So, Education USA is part of the US Department of State, and we're present pretty much wherever there's a US embassy, and we provide you with accurate, current, and comprehensive information. We also offer resources, guidance, and advice on how to find the best fit university that caters to your needs at all levels, whether it's undergraduate or graduate. So, what all services do we provide? We provide one-on-one advising. You can either book a virtual call with us or visit one of our offices in Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad to get advice from your Education USA advisor. We offer free in-house or virtual sessions like the webinar that we're having right now. We also offer free workshops on the GRE, SAT, TOEFL, GMAT, and other standardized tests that you might need to take. And if you visit our offices, you'll be able to access our resource library, where we not only have books on the standardized tests, but we also have books on US culture, campus life, and what it means to be an international student in the US. So, in addition to our advising centers in Pakistan, we also have Lincoln Corners. So, Lincoln Corners in Pakistan and around the world, but pretty much in Pakistan, serve as American spaces, right? We have five Lincoln Corners in Punjab. The one in Lahore is located inside the Qaid-e-Azam Library. We have one in Sargodha, Faisalabad, Multan, and Bihari. So, the Lincoln Corners have 3D printers. You can pretty much come and work there between 9 to 5 on any weekday between Monday through Friday and work on something that you need to do. Use a desktop, take a virtual tour of a university that you're interested in, or simply read a book or magazine. So what you can do is that register for our free advising services at educationusa.pk/register, and you will receive updates, weekly updates outlining all of our upcoming events and webinars for the week. We are trying to host more in-person events for you guys in Lahore inside the Fulbright Center at FC College. If you have any queries, email us at lahore@educationusa.org. If anybody has any queries about the Fulbright program, feel free to email us. Somebody from our team will get the email and we will get back to you. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Instagram at EducationUSA Pakistan, and also follow the Lahore consulate, the US consulate in Lahore on Instagram, X, and Facebook, because we do collaborate with them a lot. Just an update for everybody that we have a pre-departure orientation coming up in Lahore. It's on the 27th and 28th of July for undergraduate and graduate students who head into the United States either for a bachelor's degree or a master's or PhD degree. The one for undergraduate is on the 27th, and the one for master's is on the 28th. So if you or if anybody that you know is heading to the US this year, please ask them to register come to our pre-departure orientation, because there we'll be sharing tips about how to transition smoother to life in the US, about US campus and culture. And we'll also have Fulbright alumni, and as well as people who have been to the United States for their education, and they'll be able to guide students better on how to engage with other peers in the US, and also provide advice. And this is a great opportunity to meet somebody who is heading to the US and might be in the same state or in the same city as you. And it will be a great sort of head start to meet people who you might not otherwise have known were there in the US. If anybody has any questions or queries about the visa, you can go to the usembassy.gov website and go to the page in Pakistan, and you will be able to schedule a visa appointment there. Okay, that's it from my end. I'll hand it over to you now, Mary.
Great, thank you very much. I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, great. And can everyone see my screen?
Yep, I can see your screen.
Amazing. Great. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. We have a great session here for you today about how to prepare a winning graduate application. So I'm very excited to give you some great tips and tricks and give you a little insight into what we as admissions counselors look for in your graduate school application. As mentioned, my name is Mary. I work on the graduate admissions team here at Brandeis University. Um, so just to start out, if you're unfamiliar with Brandeis, maybe you haven't heard of us before, I wanted to quickly go over a little bit about us. Here at Brandeis, we have fantastic faculty. They bring real world experience and research into our classrooms. They're very dedicated. We have a personalized approach here, and our faculty really gets to know our students and their goals over the course of your program here at Brandeis. We do have a vast network of over 60,000 plus alumni. They come back to speak in class, run networking events, and participate in things like industry treks. And as far as our student population, we have an enrollment of almost 3,400 undergraduate students, with over 1,300 graduate students across our four schools. And if you're unfamiliar with our location, we are located just outside of the city of Boston in Massachusetts. And we're in the city of Waltham. So we're just a quick train ride away into the city for things like internships. But Boston itself is a big hub of tech, biopharma, finance, and we also have some of the top hospitals in the nation. Also, many nonprofit and startup organizations to explore in Waltham as well. I want to quickly go over and highlight just a few of our master's degree programs, although we have many, many more. But at our school, we have four graduate schools, as mentioned, and at our School of Business and Economics, we have a few programs here that can all be STEM designated degrees. We have our MBA program, which is a 2-year program, our MS in Business Analytics, which is a 16-month degree, and can also be completed in a 12 months. We also have our MS in Finance, which is a 16-month degree program, but for those with a finance background, they can complete it in 9 months in an accelerated format. At our Heller School, which is our social sciences and social policy graduate school, we have our master's in public policy, which is a 2-year degree, along with our global sustainability policy and management program, which is a 9 to 12-month degree. And we also have our STEM designated degree in global health policy and management, which is a 9-month program. And for the rest of the session, I'm going to be going over some of the common application materials that you will find when you're applying to graduate schools. Um, I know everyone probably has interest in different programs across different institutions. So I want to kind of speak broadly about some of the things you're going to find, but of course, everything is going to be very specific to a certain, different institutions and different programs. So as a kind of starting point, it is always best to take a look at the program you're applying to, the institution you're applying to, take a read through all of their application requirements and materials. If you do have any questions, it is always best to reach out to the admissions team, get your answers now so that as you're putting, you can prepare ahead of time for your application, especially if you're looking to apply for the 2027 upcoming application cycle. To kind of start, pretty much every graduate application will be having you upload a resume or cover letter, which is an interchangeable term. And when thinking about your resume, you really want to think of this as you're highlighting your experience so far in your journey so far. That can be many different things. So maybe you've been working for a number of years, maybe you've just graduated with your bachelor's degree and you might have some internship experience or part-time work experience. Maybe you are deeply involved in volunteer experiences, leadership work. I would recommend putting all of those different things on your resume. So what we look for is that highlight of your experience so far. We look for the bullet points underneath each of your experiences, whether it be a work experience, an internship. We want to be able to understand your impact in that role. So you want it to be concise, but with enough detail where we can understand your general responsibilities in that role, the impact you've made in that role, and when reading your resume, we have a good understanding of your experience and background and the type of things you may bring into our community, right? And so with that, you also want to make sure we really can see your journey and your progress. So, for example, even if you have stayed at the same company and have had a promotion, or if maybe you started as an intern at one company, and you worked your way up into getting a full-time job, I would still list that company and list the different roles you've had in that company and the different dates and timelines. So we really do look for that progression as well. Different, title changes, different title bump ups and things like that. All will really help strengthen your application and, your resume as well. When it comes to formatting, I would definitely, make sure it is organized in a way that is very easy for us to read. You'll always want to list your most recent experience first. And you do want to make sure the dates include both the month you started as well as the year, so we can really have a better understanding of your timeline. When it comes to page length, it will depend on how much experience you have. So someone who has had 10 years of professional experience, their resume is going to look a little different and maybe a bit longer than someone who has recently graduated with their bachelor's degree. Um, I would recommend limiting it to 1 to 2 pages. Definitely one page if your professional experience is a little bit more recent, under a year or more. And with that, save room in your resume, right? So, some people upload pictures and things like that. I would recommend saving that space so that you can really, you know, give us the detail of your journey so far. I would also make sure that your resume is tailored to grad school. So, if you have a nice summary in the beginning of your resume, as many people do, make sure that it's listing what you're applying to, right? Which is grad school. So sometimes people will forget they have their resume that they apply to internships and jobs, and their summary may say, I'm seeking a role in, but remember that you're applying to grad school, so you'll want to make sure you're updating those little things and reading over your resume before hitting submit and just making sure it's tailored to what you're applying to. The next thing I want to go over is the essay portion of your application. Different applications may call it an essay, others may call it a statement of purpose, um, others may call it, something different. But typically, there is going to be a portion of your graduate school application that will have a prompt, a question for you to answer, along with, a word count for you to stay within. So pay attention to those things. Pay attention to the prompt that they're giving you. If there are multiple questions in the prompt, make sure you're answering each question when you're writing your essay or statement of purpose. I would also say, as far as the word count goes, be very, very aware of that. Make sure you're staying, within the word count or hitting the word count and not going well over and not coming up too short either. So definitely stay in alignment with all recommendations and all questions that are being asked. This is your part of the application where we get to really hear from you in your unique voice. So one of the things I'd warn for is, of course, AI is coming into the picture, right? It's here. Um, but definitely, I would recommend using your genuine voice in the application. We read a lot of applications, and so we really can tell when something is written by an AI or if it's written by, you know, a person. So keep that in mind because you don't want that to be a detriment to your application. And it really is a time for us to learn about you and hear from you. And that's really what we want. So keep that in mind as well. I think AI can be a good tool to maybe help you brainstorm or draft. But when it comes to actually sitting down and writing, I would recommend writing it yourself. I would also recommend tailoring your essay to the school that you are applying to. So, what has you excited about applying to the institution you're choosing? What has you excited, like as you've researched their program and things like that? What has you excited to be there? Why do you see yourself there? What is their program going to help you? How is it going to help you reach your goals, right? So those are all different things that you can include in your essay as you also answer the prompt. And I would also say, start with a draft, as I mentioned, write and rewrite and definitely reread for any grammatical errors, spelling errors, and again, making sure you don't have the wrong school name in the essay and things like that. And double checking your work is always recommended as well. With a statement of purpose, sometimes it can look a little different than an essay. Sometimes it's shorter in length. Um, it will depend on the application. Some also have maybe a short answer question. So again, similar tips. Make sure you're answering the question, and stay in the word count always. Um, I would also say this can, a lot of times, a statement of purpose can be seen as your personal introduction to the community at the institution that you're applying to. So, thinking about why do you feel like you belong in this community? Why is it a fit for you? And why does this program align with your goals? Um, I would also say there tends to be in most graduate school applications a portion of the application that is optional, where you can provide additional context into anything you feel that we should know about. So I recommend that this is a great opportunity to address any weaknesses you feel are present in your application. For example, maybe there's a gap in your resume you want to address. Maybe there are some lower grades in your, undergraduate degree that you'd like to address, um, this is a great time to do so. So for example, if maybe you had a lower semester, maybe it was tough coming into your undergraduate studies, and or maybe something personal was going on, and then you improved in later semesters. I would use that portion of the application to talk about that journey, talk about what you've learned, talk about how you've improved, and talk about why you are ready for grad school so that we have additional context when assessing your application. Um, that is, and we will see that you took the effort and time to give us that additional context, and we really do consider it. So I would definitely recommend utilizing any parts of the application that allow you to address different areas if you feel that there's weaknesses to address. Some applications or programs will have a interview component of the application process. Again, it is going to be dependent on the program. So, for example, at Brandeis, we do interviews for our MBA applicants, but different programs also will require an interview. So that's when, take a look at the different requirements for the program you're applying to. But for those of you who I'm going to talk a little bit about interview tips. For those of you who aren't applying to a program that requires an interview, I think you can still take some things away from these interview tips when it comes to general interview tips, even when applying to an internship or applying to a job. So I still think you will gain something from some of these tips as well. But each school will run their interviews differently. Most, I would say, would be around 30 minutes long, about 20 to 30 minutes. So not too long, but enough where you want to make sure that you are prepared. You want to come prepared to talk about your goals with this degree. Come prepared to talk about anything and everything on your resume. And you also want to have done your research ahead of time on the institution, on the program, so that you can ask curious questions throughout the interview, so that you can speak to different things that the institution offers, and you can better speak to why you are a good fit, for this program and for this community. So definitely take a look at the institution's websites, take a look at the program, and this is a good time to talk about why you are excited. What classes are you excited for? What clubs are you planning to join? So this is your chance to really, talk about you and your excitement, and it's our chance to get to know you a little bit. So just be prepared to talk about all of those things. You also want to make sure you are, you know, presenting yourself professionally. Remember, you are speaking to alumni, staff, admissions, or another member of the community that runs interviews. Um, so dress professionally, dress to impress. Make sure you are in a quiet space with limited distractions so that the interview can run smoothly. If you are running late or having a technical issue, things happen, but it's always best to email ahead of time. And, ask to reschedule or, let the interviewer know what is going on. And I will also say practice your answers. So, look up different interview prompts, practice answering the questions out loud. You wouldn't believe the difference between just practicing by, writing things down and reading them versus actually speaking them out loud. So, have an elevator pitch ready, practice speaking it, practice talking in the mirror. It sounds very silly, but I'm telling you, it makes a world of a difference in feeling prepared as you're in the interview. So I would definitely recommend doing that as well. I would also say always have a question or two ready so that when you're wrapping up your interview and your interview asks, do you have any questions for me? Or do you have any questions that I can help answer? You already have a few ready to go. What that shows is it shows your curiosity about the program and the institution. It shows your interest, and you definitely want to make sure you have some questions ready. And I'm sure you'll have questions anyway about the program, or maybe things will come up in the interview. But just in case, maybe you're nervous and your mind goes blank, it's always best to have a few written down in front of you as well. And moving on to transcripts. So many institutions will require unofficial transcripts for the application for review. So you don't have to have typically official transcripts until you've already enrolled in the program. So just keep that in mind. Um, Transcripts should show the course name and grade earned, and transcripts should be in English or accompanied by an English translation by a certified translation agency as well. For I know for Brandeis, we recommend that, and in most programs you're applying to in the US will as well. I would check with your institution regarding evaluations from places like WES or many institutions do not require this, but will welcome it as part of your application if you already have it. But I know for Brandeis, we don't require evaluations from places like WES, so it's always best to double check with your institution. But keep in mind that, this may not be required. And in academics, your graduate admissions team will look for a strong upward trend in your grades for graduate studies. So, contrary to popular belief, we are not looking for perfection. Your application does not have to be perfect. For most people, their application is not going to be perfect, right? But if you can show progress, you can show growth, you can show what you have learned, you can show that maybe you struggled in the first couple semesters, but look how strong my grades are, and look how much they've improved, and this is what I did differently, and here's what I learned. That goes a very long way. And that is the kind of upward trend that we look for. Of course, if you have strong grades across the board, that is fantastic. That will only help strengthen your application. But we do look for an upward trend as well. So if you are worried about some lower grades, just keep that in mind. We also, most graduate schools will look for some sort of quantitative background, as a lot of graduate programs are quantitative in nature. So things like math and statistics, finance courses, um, strong grades and courses like that will only help to strengthen your application as well. When it comes to letters of recommendation, different schools will require different amounts. So some schools will require one, some may require two, and some may require more. So you'll want to keep that in mind as you're looking at application requirements. And now is a great time if you're looking ahead to the 2027 application cycle. Maybe you're looking to apply this coming fall. Now is a great time to start to connect with those you think you would like to ask to be your recommendations, and, you know, help them to prepare ahead of the application opening. So, things I recommend in choosing your recommenders. Depending on the program, some schools will require an academic recommendation, some may require professional, maybe some will require both. So again, keep that in mind. But I would choose someone who is close to you rather than someone with a high title who maybe doesn't have as much insight into your work. So someone who can write about your skills, your approach to work, um, rather than someone who, maybe is a VP or a CEO who isn't really connecting with you day to day and can't really speak um, in detail about the work that you do. So we really want to hear, we really want to hear those details. We really want to hear what it's like working with you and collaborating with you, and so choose your recommendations wisely. But I would say when connecting with your recommendations ahead of time, send them your resume, maybe have a meeting with them and talk a little bit about your goals, why you're applying to grad school, especially if maybe they are a professor or, someone who maybe you graduated a couple years ago and you haven't connected with this person recently, or maybe you worked with them a little while ago. So it's always a good time to kind of talk through why you're applying to grad school, fill them in on what you've been doing so far, since you last spoke and things like that. You can also, you know, ask them or remind them about different projects that you've worked on. And, if there's something you really are like hoping that they're going to highlight, you can talk to them about, I really feel like this project aligns closely with this program, and that's something that if you feel you'd like to talk about, I would really appreciate things like that. You can talk to them about. Of course, you can't write the recommendation with them, um, or anything like that, but you can always give them tips and different things that you'd like them to highlight in your experience, and different feedback that they can give. I would say so for standardized test scores, I would say each institution, again, every program is going to be different as far as requirements, but many schools ha are GRE and GMAT test optional. And I know for Brandeis, we don't require a GMAT or GRE score as part of your application. So, some of the different things that I would recommend if your institution that you're applying to is test optional, I would recommend um, that if you have some of those lower grades in undergrad and you are kind of d deciding whether or not you want to take the GMAT or GRE, that is a good time to consider it because it can help balance out any lower grades or lower GPA in your undergraduate studies if you score strongly. I would also recommend if your institution is test optional, that if you already have the GMAT or GRE test and you scored strongly and you got your scores back, I would include it as it can only help to strengthen your application. But if you weren't planning to take it anyway, or maybe you get your score back and it's not exactly what you would have hoped, then I would not include it as part of your application. Because anything included in the application, we do have to consider. But if it is optional, then I wouldn't worry about it, especially if your GPA is high, your academics kind of already speak for themselves. That will already go a long way in your application. For the English language proficiency scores, each school will have a recommended minimum score in their application requirements on usually it's listed on their website. Um, and many schools do have different waiver requirements for international students. So, for example, probably one of the biggest ways that our students waive this requirement is they attended a university in their bachelor's degree that was taught solely in English. So, in that case, for us, it is waived. For different institutions, they will have different waiver requirements. We have a few. But for those it's not waived for, we do have some recommended scores on our website. Many institutions will, and a lot of times these aren't minimum scores. So if you score lower, it's not that you can't still submit your proficiency score, but that is another but that would be, another time to maybe add some additional context. Maybe you scored a little weaker than the recommended score, and you might want to, address that in any optional portions of the essay. Um, but it is, if you hit the minimum score or above it, then that is great. So always take a look at minimum scores. And then the last thing I wanted to chat about too is prerequisite coursework. So some programs that you're applying to will have prerequisite courses and they'll have a certain title for it. Each institution is different and different, have different class names for similar subjects. So if you're not sure whether you meet the prerequisite for the program you're applying to, you can always double check with the admissions team and see. Um, a lot of schools will also have a minimum grade requirement for the prerequisite course to count. So, for example, for Brandeis, we typically look for a grade B and higher. And other institutions, the grade might be different in order to meet the prerequisite. Um, so you can keep that in mind as well. And if you don't meet the prerequisite and you want to take an online course, a lot of schools will have different online options that you can take through Coursera or other things to meet the prerequisite. So it's always best to check with, your admissions team for the institution you're applying to and see different ways you can meet that prerequisite course if you don't already have it. And then the last thing is a quick double check for success, right? I kind of talked throughout this a bit where, you know, double check, reread, proofread, and before you click submit on your application, go through it one more time, make sure everything is accurate, and make sure it is, your best foot forward on the application. Many schools will consider your application for scholarship awards as well, where there's no separate application to apply for scholarship. So at Brandeis, that's something that we do. Um, we review the overall strength of your application for both admission and scholarship, right? So always recommend making sure you're submitting your strongest possible application. Um, and once submitted, you just want to make sure you are monitoring your application status in your portal. Schools will send reminder emails about any like missing materials. So then you can see any items that have been received by logging into your application and any items that still might be outstanding or missing. Letter of recommendation tends to be a common one where if you are monitoring your applicant portal, you can then send a reminder to your, letter of recommendation or your recommender to send in their letter. So you just want to make sure you're staying on top of it to make sure that you can get your decision as quickly as possible too. So a little bit about application timelines for spring and fall 2027 applications. If you are looking at ahead to 2027 right now, um, different timelines for different institutions. Our application is expected to open in September for both the spring and the fall term. Some applications will be opening up this summer, probably, very soon within the next month or so. So you want to take a look at the different institutions. Definitely recommend applying early, getting you're already here, right? You're getting the application tips. So start to put those together over the next month or so if you're looking for the 2027 term, and you will be, ready to go with a winning application by the time the application opens. And the sooner you apply, the sooner you can get your decision and start preparing for your term of that you're enrolling in. So. And lastly, before we get to the Q&A, I did just want to put up our email here. So if you do have any questions after this session, if you have any questions regarding our specific programs, our specific requirements, or anything else that we can help answer for you, um, you can feel free to email us at gradadmissions@brandeis.edu, and we would be so happy to connect with you and answer any questions that you may have about Brandeis specifically. Um, so I'll take just 1 second for anyone to jot that down, just in case you don't have it yet, before we move on to our Q&A. So feel free, if you haven't already, take this time and put any questions that you have in the Q&A, and I'd be so happy to answer those live. Okay. So I'll now open up the floor for any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can open up the Q&A. Great. All right. So I see some questions in here. Thank you so much for putting your questions in. And I'm going to get started on that. So someone had a question about PhD programs and if we're offering PhD programs. Yes, we do have PhD programs available. So I would be happy to go ahead and pull a link for you, which I will go ahead and type that answer in for you so everyone can have the link for um, for all our programs, and that way you can browse through. PhD programs itself will have very different requirements as well. Um, but here I'm typing in a link and I've just sent it to all of our, all graduate programs. So that will include a full list of the master's programs in different tabs as well as PhD programs as well. So hopefully that's helpful for anyone else interested in PhD programs too. The And someone just asked how to ask questions, and you got it correct. If you want to just go ahead and put any questions in this Q&A function, I can see it on my end, and I'd be happy to get to them. Someone asked a question about switching their degree. So as far as programs applying, and I'm talking Brandeis specifically, but there will be some programs that you can apply to as a dual degree. Sometimes there's programs that you can add on as a current student to add on a dual degree. And for each school, they will do dual degrees very differently. And then for things like switching your program, say, for example, you apply to one program and you decided, actually, I think this program's a better fit for me. It's always best to reach out to the admissions team, depending on where you are in the admissions process, and reaching out to see if that's something that's possible. For most grad programs, you will have to be reconsidered, right? Your application will have to be reconsidered for that new program. So, your different things may change, but they will be able to assess your eligibility for that program, and go from there. So it's always best to reach out to admissions for those kind of questions if you change your mind and things like that. Someone did ask about a recording for this session, and I was told that this will be on YouTube, so a recording will be available for you to be able to watch back later for any information. Someone did ask about scholarships that are available to reduce the cost of tuition. So as mentioned, when you do apply to Brandeis, you are considered for all applicable scholarships at that time. So we do have generous scholarships available, and when you apply to our programs and then receive an admissions decision, any applicable scholarship award will also be um, in your admission letter. So you'll receive both an admissions decision and a scholarship award at that time if you are admitted. So you'll have, all information at once. Someone did ask about word count. So again, word count is going to vary by institution for things like your essay. At Brandeis, for some of our programs, we require about a 500 word essay. You will see that in other programs as well, about 500 words, but it really does depend on the prompt and the type of question that you're answering. So you wherever you are answering that question, it'll say the word count in parentheses, so you have it right there, right on the application. And let's see. So someone mentioned they were asking what sort of documents are required for the application. Um, all those materials I kind of went throughout this presentation are very common materials that you will see in most graduate school applications. So the most important ones, right? Transcript, resume, some sort of essay or SOP. Sometimes we have a short answer, a certain amount of letters of recommendation, typically between one to two, your resume as well, if I haven't mentioned that already, and an interview component if that's required as part of your program that you're applying to. See. Someone was mentioning, their GPA. Would it be considered a strong GPA? And we do look for most schools will it depends on the school. So some schools may have a GPA minimum, right? We at Brandeis do not have a GPA minimum requirement, but we do look for a strong GPA. So a GPA above 3.3 is generally pretty good. Anything, above a 3.5 is a very strong GPA. And I would say anything below a 3.0, it would be very smart of you to use that additional context of the portion of your application and maybe address that weakness in your bachelor's degree. I think it would also be that would be a good time to maybe take the GMAT or GRE, because if you score strong, that would help to balance out your application. Or you could also, take an online course through Coursera. If we see a stronger grade in a graduate level course, that will also, help to balance out your application as well. So there's a few different things you can do depending on where your GPA is. Um, Let's see here. Someone did ask when the application will open. So, for Brandeis specifically, our application for spring 2027 term and the fall 2027 term is expected to open in early to mid-September. Um, and other schools may open later this summer, some similar to us into September. So if you're looking for the spring or fall 2027 term, that's about the time frame that you can expect. So that's why it's a great time to join the session and start to get your application materials together and get started. Someone asked, is the PhD degrees fully funded? At Brandeis, it will depend on the specific PhD program, but a lot of PhD degrees do get full tuition stipends. So it will just depend on, the specific PhD degree. See. Someone did ask about undergraduate programs. We do have undergraduate programs available as well. This session is mainly focused on graduate level programs, but we do have undergraduate programs too. Someone did ask about an application fee waiver and how they could get one. And so our application isn't open yet for the 2027 type for the 2027 cycle, but there will be opportunities to receive either a application fee discount or full fee waivers. Typically, this is through attending event sessions similar to this one, which you can register for through our website. We do host events and we will show events in the description that would qualify you for an application fee waiver. But it's always best to just you could always reach out to the admissions team if you're not sure or it's not shown on the website for, whichever institution you're applying to see how you can get an application fee waiver or if there are any available. Let's see. Thank you all for all your questions. I'm reading through to see if there are any that I can address at this time before we wrap up, because I know we have limited time here. So there were a few questions in here, kind of talking about different backgrounds, maybe what sorts of, guidance I could give on different requirements for what program to apply to and things like that. I will say, I would definitely recommend reaching out to us by email. We can always set up a one-on-one session to kind of go through our different program options to see what may be the best fit for you specifically based on your background, based on your goals moving forward. So always feel free to reach out to us. We are so happy to help guide and help you in this application process. Um, and, many admissions team members for different institutions would be so happy to do the same. So, if you do have any, very specific questions to you, I don't think I'll have time to address them all here in this session. But I would love to speak with you offline, and I would be so happy to kind of, help you in this journey. Because I know there's a lot of different programs and a lot of different things that you can do with these programs. So, um, happy to help talk offline. See. Okay. All right, great. Well, I think I addressed most of these. I'm so sorry if I was not able to get to your question today. But as I mentioned, and I can pull our email here. We do have our email that I can put hopefully right in the chat. Let me see if I'm able to. So I'm going to put our email right here in the chat for everyone to see. You can just go down and click on the webinar chat box in your Zoom panel. It's gradadmissions@brandeis.edu. So again, if you have any specific questions for me about our programs, or you want to talk generally about application tips a little bit more offline and get to know each other a little bit more, I'd love to hear more about your background and your goals and how graduate school can help you get there. So thank you all so much again for joining. I hope you took away from this session with a lot of different tips. I hope to see some of your applications as well. Um, but yeah, have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Mary. This was great. I think that we had a lot of engagement, a lot of questions from students, Um, Thank you so much again, and I wish you great rest of the summer in Boston.
Thank
Hope that it won't be
thank
too
you.
hot for you, and I hope that we can collaborate again in the future. Thank you. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, everyone.